Hey everybody, it's your occasional co-host Martha. The podcast is going on a brief holiday due to exciting yet time-consuming life changes in the PG family. While on holiday, Living My Breastless Life podcast will share the top 4 episodes of Season 1. We're excited to hear what your favorite episode re-release is. Gearing up for Season 2, coming to you in mid-May. Stay tuned. Head over to Instagram and follow According to HPG to stay connected to the show and let us know what topics you want to hear about. We'd love for you to download, follow, give us a rating and a review. This helps little indie podcasts stay visible and reach listeners. Thanks for all your support, and go get your mammograms.
Hey, it's HPG. This is the podcast, Living My Breastless Life, the show where we hear about my journey to heal while battling cancer, being a wife, a toddler mom. We're going to cover all things real life. We learn what it really means to heal no matter what we go through. In Season 1, you will hear some of my story, along with episodes featuring my occasional co-host, Martha, and some badass guests. There will be humor, life hacks, tips and tricks, and further proof that truth can be stranger than fiction. On this podcast, we talk all things real life. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what I think is a controversial life hack, living an alcohol-free life. I believe this is in the top 5 best ways to live your best life. I know it was very instrumental for me in the beginning of my healing journey and has led me to honestly living my most authentic, best life. I have the pleasure to have Sara Kaufman-Bradstreet here as a special guest today, who is the founder of No More Wasted Days. Hey, Sara, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So tell us a little bit about you and how you founded No More Wasted Days.
So 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, I was really in a strange place with my drinking, and I was drinking every day, but I thought it was this normal amount. I was drinking like 2 to 5 drinks every single weekday, but then the weekends were becoming a bender situation. And that felt a little out of control, and that part felt really off. But I was watching friends kind of do the same thing, or so I thought. And I just didn't know what to do because I was one of those people that started Googling, am I an alcoholic? How do you know if you're an alcoholic? And just so the listeners know, if you're Googling that, there may be an issue. I wish that would have popped up during my searches, because instead all these to-do lists, like not to-do lists, but checklists would pop up, and I would read through those, and I could find ways to say no to every single one of those things and be like, nope, that hasn't happened. Nope, that hasn't happened. And just kind of walk away from it and be like, oh, I must be okay. And I just was stuck in this cycle. I was drinking every night, and I would wake up each morning having a slight hangover or a major hangover. And I didn't really want to get outside help. I knew I needed to change, but I felt like what I needed to do was just get better at drinking, just become more responsible with my drinking, not drink so much. So I finally decided I would start with 30 days. I finally decided I would take a break for 30 days. And my husband actually initiated it. He had told me he thought he was going to totally quit drinking. And I was kind of sidelined by that because we were drinking buddies. And I was just like, oh, you can't come out with me with that information. Like, I don't know what to even do with that. And I finally decided, okay, I'll do this with him. And all honesty, I thought it would last like 7 days. I thought, we'll try this. We'll give it a little half-hearted try, and then we'll probably be back to normal. But something clicked this time, and it just stuck. And I started seeing all of these benefits. Like you said, the biggest life hack. I started seeing all these amazing things start coming my way because I wasn't drinking and I wasn't focusing on drinking. And I could see how alcohol had become the main focus in my life, which is so backwards because I have 2 kids, I have my husband. At the time I was a teacher, I had so many other things to focus on, but drinking was my main thing. And stepping away from alcohol with a 30-day break allowed me to see that. And then I started seeing those benefits, and they just started compiling and compounding on one another. And I wasn't telling anybody I was doing this. I was like, oh my gosh, I've tried to take breaks from alcohol before and I've always failed. So I don't want to tell people because I don't want to own up to failure again. So I'm just going to keep this between me and my husband. But somewhere around 2.5 months, I made a little Facebook post and just kind of did I did a thing. I did one of those posts, even though I hate it when people write that. I was like, oh, I did a thing. And I haven't been drinking. And these are the benefits I've seen. And I just feel like my life has been changed. And I had so many people reach out to me on that post and just congratulate me and cheer me on. And I was like, oh my gosh, something I was so afraid to do, tell the world that I wasn't drinking. And then all this support came my way and people hopping into my DMs and saying, how did you do it? Tell me more. And I was like, whoa, I was kind of blown away. And then all I did after that was I started posting at milestones. Like I made it to 100 days, 150 and 200. And I would make little Facebook posts. And then finally one October, I decided I'm going to do a sober October with my friends and family. I'm going to put it out there and I'll just see if somebody wants to do a challenge with me, and we'll do it through a Facebook group and we'll check in each day. And I had so many people join the challenge, and that's where it all kind of was born. Like people hopped in, and all we did in that first group was check in. There was nothing too exciting happening there, but I do still have friends that did that challenge with me, and they still tell me, I haven't drank since I did that challenge with you. Thank you so much. I know. And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh. And I made friends in that group. It was just a really cool thing. And I thought, I'm going to start doing this each month. So I did November, kind of the same laid back thing. And then I started recording videos. I thought I'll record some videos so people have something to watch each day. And I did that. And that's what became my 30-day alcohol-free challenge. And that's kind of how No More Wasted Days came to be. My husband and I started seeing that other people were having the exact same struggles we were. They were stuck in that place, what a lot of people call gray area drinking, of questioning their drinking, but not feeling like they wanted to find what is the normal outside help, maybe not do a 12-step program, or maybe just not feeling like that was the place for them. So I started sharing my story on TikTok. I started sharing my story on Instagram. And it has just grown to be this amazing community. It's amazing when you open up social media and people are commenting. Like I quit drinking 1 year ago, and it's because I saw one of your TikToks, and I don't know the person. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what an impact. And I think that there's a lack of space out there where people feel heard, because it is such a shameful thing, which it shouldn't be. And I think so many of us feel so guilty about our drinking, and we don't want to admit it. So when somebody can be courageous enough or crazy enough to hop onto social media and say, hey, I was doing these things, and if you're doing them, you're not alone. It filled a space for a lot of people. So that's kind of how it happened and how it all came to be. And I've met amazing people like you through this.
Oh, so thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that we met and connected. When I found No More Wasted Days, it was really cool to just have a space to land where people talked about the reality of how much alcohol consumes your life. Or, often when you're thinking about making a big life change, like living alcohol free, you think you're the only person that's ever had certain thoughts. And to be a part of a community and to connect with others, you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, you feel this way? It's very affirming. And, after doing the Google searches of, am I this? Or, getting mired up in some of the research that might be a little bit, questionably misinformation. Yeah. Just hearing personal real life experiences of what folks are also going through when they're trying to cut back or do a 30-day challenge or quit drinking altogether, and just having a soft place to land that is not a 12-step program. So there's a lot of stigma around that program. I mean, no disparity to the program, but people think like, oh, if I quit, I have to go to AA. I mean, but in, No More Wasted Days, there are, all walks of life, all areas of exploration, like you said, gray area drinking, or folks who are super curious, or folks who are really struggling and are reaching out for support. So I'm so glad that you shared your personal story on Facebook, and it led to No More Wasted Days, which is how you and I met. So I love it. I also love the name. When I tell folks about it, I often get commented like, God, that's a great name. So
yeah, that was one my husband and I brainstormed for. I feel like we were walking around for 2 weeks being like, well, what should we call it? And just throwing ideas out at each other. And a lot of times being like, no, that's terrible. And then somehow this one came, we were both like, that's it. And it was really like, drinking made it so we stopped wasting days. We had so many days where we would just lay on the couch and watch TV, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it was because we were healing from a hangover. It's not because we wanted to be there. Like, we have those intentional days now where we really do just lay on the couch all day. And it's not wasted. It's this intentional rest then. But before, it was just because I was just recovering, and so was my husband. And it was, so when we thought of that, we were both like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think another component of like kind of wasted in the day is like the time spent like, okay, well, I've got to stop and get this amount because the store doesn't sell it on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So I've got to prepare. You put a lot of effort into preparing to drink and making sure you have your provisionals in place if there's a snowstorm, or, there's a lot of energy and time put into alcohol and planning around it and making sure you have enough. And like No More Wasted Days that come in the form of time and, thinking about drinking and like wasting your time, like, oh, we're going to celebrate this, but let's get this to celebrate this. And then we feel terrible, as you were saying, like, and on the couch as a result of a hangover, or like having a really rough morning just because you're grouchy, from, overdoing it the night before. So I absolutely love the name.
And even those moments that I lost from blackouts that I still have never gotten back. There's still some moments where I want to know how certain dumb things happened that I did when I was drunk. Like, I broke a toe one time drunk, and I still have no idea how I did it. And I'm always like, it's just a moment I'll never get back. And not that I want it back, but it's those unanswered questions. And like, that was such a waste. It was just such a waste for me. And I could have been spending my time doing something else. So we felt pretty fortunate when we both brainstormed upon that one.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you and your husband, Ryan, did it together. I'm sure that was a really like area of support, but also maybe an area of like grouchy struggle, in the beginning.
For sure. And it was like, there were times where I would be feeling like, oh my gosh, he always said that I would wake up every single day thinking, oh my gosh, are you noticing this? Are you more creative? Are you more focused? And he's like, I'm not really feeling any different. Like, and I just kept being like, are you kidding me? This is like, I feel like from the get-go, I was almost overly happy about the choice, which I did not expect to be. And if you would have met me as a drinker, I didn't think people who were saying that without alcohol life can be fun, I thought they were total liars. And so to become the person that was like, oh my gosh, my life is changing because I did this one thing, almost feels a little hypocritical sometimes.
Yeah. I think there's like a lot of, people who are really ambivalent about their drinking or questioning their drinking. People who are really excited about being alcohol-free or being sober, however you want to word it, we can be kind of annoying. A little with our excitement, but it is exciting. I mean, you get to experience life on life's terms. You're present. You know, you're more energetic. You're overall happier. Your anxiety has decreased. I know I haven't had a panic attack, since I cut that out of my life. So from a mental health perspective, and you mentioned creativity, it really opens a lot of doors that you just don't realize until you take a break.
Yeah, you can't see it until you step away from it. That's what I always tell people. And like, even to do it as an experiment with yourself, just to see what it looks like without alcohol. And I know we both touched on AA and how there's a stigma around that. Part of my issue with AA when I was a drinker was that I didn't feel like I belonged there. I felt like if I went to an AA meeting, first I'd have to stand up and tell everybody I was an alcoholic, because I had this very perceived, I had this idea of what AA was from the movies. I had no real life experience with it. But I was like, if I do this, I have to go to a meeting and admit I'm an alcoholic, and I don't know if I am. And I also thought, if I go and say I'm an alcoholic, then I totally have to quit forever, because that's what you do. And those two things, I was like, I don't want to stand up at a meeting and introduce myself, and I don't want to make the choice to quit forever right away. And that's why I think something like a 30-day challenge opens up this opportunity to people where they can say, all right, well, I'm going to do this, and I can just see. And then you really can go, oh, I do like my alcohol-free life better, or I don't because of this, or I wasn't able to do the 30-day challenge. So maybe now I do need to look at outside sources. It's just that jumping off point for a lot of people, and from people from, like you said, all different walks of life. So I never want people to think that I'm bashing AA. I just know where I was. And when I talk to other people, they're like, yes, that's exactly. And we have people in our group that go to Alcoholics Anonymous and do the challenge as well. Or maybe they started with the challenge and found out, okay, this isn't the support I need, but I need something more. So it was still the jumping off point for people.
Let's take a little break and get right back to the show. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch by heading over to According to HPG on Instagram, and be sure to tell your friends about the show. There was a time when I thought I could record, edit, and publish everything myself. Seeing as this left me very little time for anything else, I started to lose the standard of quality I was used to. Then I found Jay. In less than a day, the show went from so-so to amazing. Don't sacrifice quality for mediocrity. Check out the Podcast Mechanic and take your sound to the next level. Connect with Jay today at the Podcast Mechanic on Instagram. Let him know HPG sent you. And now, back to the show.
So with no more wasted days, what does a 30-day alcohol-free challenge look like?
So I walk people through 30 days by sending them daily videos. So every day people get a brand new video delivered to their email, and it's about 5 to 10 minutes long. And I go through various topics that I was feeling in the beginning. And like I said, I initially recorded all of these when I was pretty newly alcohol free. So I'm so happy I did that. I have no idea why I felt this urge to do it. And it was just like, it was for friends and family, like I said, but all of the topics are so catered to people who are brand new to their alcohol-free journey. So now that I'm farther along in my journey, I actually went and re-recorded them all. And I was going to change some topics, and I actually looked at all of them and I said, this is exactly what people are walking through in those first 30 days. I changed one video. when I went through. And I was like, wow. But I was able to go at it now with more experience in my alcohol-free life and working with other people who have more experience. So it was a really fun process to do. But you get these videos that help you understand why you're having sugar cravings in the first week. And how do you tell your friends that you're doing this? Or do you need to tell your friends? And how do you start looking beyond the 30 days? How do you start future casting? That was the one thing that I re-recorded because we talk about it so much on our weekly calls, like stepping into your new alcohol-free persona and realizing that you can become so much more than you ever thought. So those videos are part of it. You get the daily email from me as well. And we have a 30-day printable journal that walks you through mindset work, which was huge for me. I always tell people that I do think that was the one reason it stuck for me, is because I started a daily gratitude journal and I started doing daily affirmations. And that piece for me really helped me step into the mindset of a non-drinker, which is something I never did before when I had tried to step away from alcohol. And then I help people learn how to visualize so they can start becoming more solid in stepping into a social event and going through a visualization process before they do that social event. And then I offer knowledge that really helped me in the beginning. The idea that alcohol doesn't actually help your anxiety. And the idea that alcohol is poison, which I feel so stupid that I didn't know that as a drinker. And I didn't know it was a cause of so many health issues. Like I thought it was a liver, like it's bad for your liver. That's what I thought. And drinking self was like, that's probably fine. Like it's bad for everyone else's liver. Like I would always have an excuse. And when I actually started doing the research and I was like, oh my gosh, it is so bad for us. So I just put all of that in, all the stuff that I really felt in my first 30 days. And I got it all in to 30 days for members that go through the group. And beyond that, we have an online community. And then we even have our personal message thread. And some people opt to join in on weekly group calls too.
I think that's awesome. I think it gives a real life perspective and approach. And I love to hear you talk about mindset and, the tips of how to approach social situations, because people almost act like, oh, you're not drinking?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Is this forever? Like almost like something's wrong with you. Or like there has to be an excuse, like, well, oh, surely she's on a medication, or is she pregnant? Or like the strangest responses sometimes. But I think that's really people exploring maybe their own relationship with alcohol sometimes.
For sure.
And the fact that it's so permeated in our culture.
Yeah, because why would somebody choose to not drink? Like, that's crazy, right?
Right. It's just such a bizarre concept to not put ethanol in your body.
Yeah. And it's so funny because it was the thing that I was so afraid, oh my God, people are going to ask me why I'm not drinking. And I thought people are going to think I'm pregnant. I'm going to have to tell everybody I'm not. It was those ridiculous thoughts that you have when you're stuck in the drinking world, because your drinking brain is just so much different than your real authentic brain. And it just sitting there going, oh, well, if you quit, you're going to have to tell all your friends, and none of your friends are going to like you anymore, which is not true. You may find out that some people are not your people, but I mean, how many people have actually questioned your drinking? It does happen, but I mean, I thought it was going to happen daily with the fear that I had towards it. And it honestly doesn't happen as much as we think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think we may catastrophize it a little bit because of our own anxiety. And, doing those first couple of social events, you build the muscle in your brain and in your vocabulary to train your brain that no, I just don't drink. Yeah. And people are like, okay. And, people are then off to somebody else or themselves. That's just the nature of people. So...
yeah, and there definitely are those outliers who are really pushy about why aren't you drinking? And I always just remind myself, we're holding up a mirror to them, and it can be really threatening when you tell somebody that you don't drink when they're questioning their own relationship with alcohol. those are some of the things I definitely walk through, reminding people when you're quitting, it can be a big shock to people. So even if they do question you, here's some ways to handle it, and handle it with grace. And because that is not always my strongest suit. I'm somebody who will jump to a conclusion that, oh, they don't like me because they're questioning it, but it may just be because they're gathering information themselves.
Absolutely. What do you think are some of the biggest struggles that folks experience during the 30-day alcohol-free challenge?
So many different ones. I think one I hear a lot is that people are bored in the beginning. They don't know what to do because, like we said, you end up having so much time, which is a blessing. But in the beginning, it almost feels like a curse because you're so used to your drinking life. You get home from work, you open your beer or pour your wine or whatever you have, and then that kind of starts making your mundane life feel a little more exciting and makes you get through the evening a little faster. And I know for a lot of people, they'll say, well, I'm just so bored, so I don't know what to do. So we talk a lot about what are some different hobbies you can start exploring? What is a way you can make a plan when you get home of really planning out your evening so you know what's going to happen and you know that drinking isn't an option? That's one that I definitely hear from people. And then people who are with a partner and their partner decides to not quit with them or to maybe not support their journey, which this one is always really hard for me to help people with just because I was super fortunate that my husband decided to do this and I followed along with him. But that one seems to be the really hard one. And you have to remember that you're on this journey for you. And people will follow your actions. But if you're going to start talking to your partner in this way, and I remember that Marta quit before you actually. So you actually have experience on the other end of this. And it is very it can feel almost like a personal attack when your partner decides to quit. So you have to remember to lead with actions and not come at them with you need to do this with me too, because they're already feeling attacked by your choice. So I think that that's one way with the challenge, I'm able to support people and make them feel like they have a community and they have people that understand when maybe their partner doesn't quite understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, Martha quit drinking before me, and that kind of changed our relationship a little bit, in terms of how we spend our evenings and weekends. But what it did was mirror to me, oh, she's feeling pretty good in the morning and she's pretty energetic and she's, positivity and some reflections. So I could see if the shoe was on the other foot, that would be a challenge. And the good thing about the community is that there's, like we said earlier, so many walks of life and stages in the challenge, and there's support for that. And really any obstacle that people face, in my experience being a part of this group for so long, that there's almost not a question that someone can't provide support around, or a possible solution or a suggestion or a tip or a trick or some insight. And I really think that's the importance of the support and the connection in the community.
For sure. And it is when I can't say that I've had personal experience with someone, there, like you said, there is always somebody that has had that experience and going to totally say, well, this is what happened with me and this is how I worked through it. And here are some tips and strategies that you can put in place.
Additionally, it's really cool because it doesn't have to be associated with Facebook. I mean, even though there is a Facebook component, folks can join if they don't do social media, because I know that can be an issue for people, or it's not people's cup of tea, so to speak, social media. So there's that component. And, you live on the West Coast, I live on the East Coast, and you and I have become really close, but we've never met in person. And, and being a part of the community and helping others. And I've met a really, really good friend who actually lives in the state that I live in. And it's just really cool how, you find your people on your healing journey. And when you cut out certain things in your life and embrace other opportunities and you open your mind, you're just inviting like more goodness. That's one of the parts that I love a lot about the group.
And as like dorky or corny as it sounds, your vibe attracts your tribe. I really believe it totally happens. It's just, and I tell people all the time in the group, I'm like, I thought I would never meet friends that didn't drink. And now it happens all the time. I'll meet new people and they'll say, oh, I don't drink, before I even say anything. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it really is true when you're putting it out there. You start finding these people, and maybe it's online first to start getting you comfortable in your own skin being alcohol free. And then suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, there's other people all around me that are living this exact same life, or maybe quit for different reasons than you, but you have that one thing in common. And it's really cool to have that happen.
It's just cool when you make life changes for the good, just like I said, just the things that open up, and your vibe attracts your tribe, and energy draws attention. And I do believe it is one of the best life hacks, although it is quite controversial, but I do believe it is definitely top 5.
Yeah, I do too. And it's so funny because when somebody said that in our group, like, this is the biggest life hack, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what it is. And I have trolls sometimes say, oh, why do you share this all the time? You're just shoving this in people's faces. And I always will answer, because it changed my life. And I had no idea that it would change my life. And if I can help one other person that's struggling, I'm going to share. So, and it is just like, you just don't know when you're stuck in it. And it can be really scary, but to hear somebody else on the other side, and you can see that they made it and that they're saying, my life changed in all these ways, you're kind of like, okay, if they can do it, maybe I can too.
Yes, absolutely. What would you say, speaking of life changes, what would you say like the top 3 life changes that you experienced when you became alcohol-free?
When I became alcohol-free, oh my gosh, this is, let's see, 2 were pretty easy. I found the courage to walk away from my teaching job. It's something I had wanted to do for a really long time. And I had a second online business, and I knew I could build it up to replace my teaching income. And I did it. And it wasn't even, I was a little bit afraid, like, well, what if I lose this online income? What if something happens? And I was like, it won't. Like, I had so much confidence in myself as a non-drinker that I could figure it out. No matter what, I could figure it out. So after teaching music in the public schools for 18 years, I put in my resignation, and it was one of the most exciting things I had ever done. Even though I had been planning it for like 5 years, I had been planning it for so long and putting it off. And I think I would have continued to put it off if I was drinking. I think I just would have been like, oh, I don't know. It's too scary to leave a really stable 9-to-5. And that then led to my husband and I deciding to uproot our family from suburbia and move out into the country in the Pacific Northwest. And we had a piece of property on 5 acres. And we are now building our own house. And we've been doing that for a year and a half now. And we are building our own house, just me and him. And I look at him every day and think, our drinking selves, there's no way we would have stopped building every day at noon and started drinking. And it's just like, it's a crazy life, but it's amazing. I think those are 2 of like the major changes that other people can see. But beyond that, I have just become a more present mom, a more present wife. I am really able to give more of myself to my family. And I think that that's a huge gift. And I always tell people that I didn't think I had hit rock bottom because I hadn't lost my kids. You always hear stories of, I lost my kids, and it's very tragic. And I worked in public schools and I saw it happen. And I was like, I haven't had that happen. And I hadn't gotten a divorce because of my drinking. And I would just say, oh, no, it's fine. But I was never giving them my full self because I was always thinking about alcohol. I would be drinking alcohol and tell my kids I couldn't play a game with them because I was busy drinking a beer. I was hungover, so I couldn't be happy and joyful in the morning. And now I'm able to do those things. So whenever people are like waiting for that rock bottom, sometimes you have to step away to see like, oh my gosh, I am taking away, I have lost my kids. Maybe they're physically in the room, but I am not mentally there with them. And that's probably my third thing that it's my relationship with my kids and my husband has changed and elevated so much.
I think that's wonderful. I think it's so amazing that y'all were able to live your dream and build your home together. I always tell Martha, like, Sara and Ryan are building a home, like, together. And she's like, we can't install curtains together.
You can do it.
But y'all are just like super brave to live your dream, and you were able to leave your teaching job and create your own happiness and your own like good fun energy that y'all do together with your family. And I think that's awesome. I can't wait to come visit and see your chickens. That's on my list.
Oh, good. I always am like, and then one day all of you are going to get to come see this house that you keep hearing about.
I can't wait. I want to get on that zip line thing.
Oh my gosh, that thing is so fun. And it's not too high off the ground, so it's not super scary. Just
a little bit of good fun,
it's
right?
The right amount. Yeah, exactly. It's like that. We can put you on all the fun kids things that now my kids don't have interest in. We can go on the trampoline and the zip line and the ropes course.
There you go. All right. Well, let's tell folks how to find No More Wasted Days and connect with you.
So I'm the most active on social media on TikTok and on Instagram, and both of them are the same handle. It's no_more_wasted_days. So just no more wasted days, but with an underscore in between each word. And then I'm also on Facebook, and you can just find me there with No More Wasted Days. And I think those are my main ways to find me. And then I also have a link to 10 mantras that I used when I was newly alcohol-free. And I'll be sure to give you the link to that, because if people grab those 10 mantras, then they're automatically added to my weekly newsletter where I send out 2 emails a week. So if that's something that your listeners are interested in, I'll give you the link for that.
Awesome. Wonderful. I'll make sure that I post all this information in the show notes so people can check it out if they're curious. I'm really glad that you joined the show today. It was so much fun to talk with you about No More Wasted Days.
To talk to you. So
thank you. Thank you so much. And I'd love to have you back to further talk about alcohol-free life. I hope everyone enjoys this episode. If you have any questions about No More Wasted Days, check out the show notes, and I'll link access to No More Wasted Days on my social media. And of course, if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, I'll send them your way, Sara. You have a beautiful day. I hope everyone listening also has an awesome day, and thanks for joining this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Living My Breastless Life. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please leave a review, download, and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Go get your mammograms.